Hi, I'm Heather from booktubes, and today is my April reading wrap-up. So in the month of April, I read 26 books. I DNF'd 10 of them, and so I'm going to talk about 16 today. This was a weird reading month. I did read every single day of the month, but the results were out of my norm, I guess. One, not a lot of diversity. That will not be the case in May. I know it was the case in March. I know it was the case in April. That blip on the radar is over. Okay, the hiccup is done. We are done with that. I have plenty of reasons why it panned out that way. Doesn't really matter. Just know this is not that great at all. It's definitely not up to my personal standard on diversity, and May will be better. So the first book that I read is The Liar's Knot, which is the Rook and Rose #2 by M.A. Carrick. 5 stars. This is again because of Angela at Literature Science Alliance. I love it so much. Like, this is a new all-time favorite. I am like 99% sure I'm going to order the entire trilogy in paperback. So there's a first time for everything. Okay, I'm obsessed. I love this. So again, kind of a quick recap of the first book. We have a con artist who's trying to worm her way into the nobility. We follow her as our main character, but we also follow several other kind of main character POVs, including the noble family that she's trying to join herself to, a criminal who has made more money than anyone else and has risen to businessman status but is still below the nobility, and the Rook, who is like the vigilante protector of the city, right?
So I completely forgot about a character. The nobility is a group that colonized the country like 200 years ago, right? And then there's still the indigenous people that are native to the land, and we have a cop who is an indigenous person but is considered a traitor to his class, and he's another main POV.
So this one, if you understand the world building in this series, which is fantastic, I love it so much, and I don't want to really talk about so many of the things that I love because they're kind of pointless unless you've read the book, you know? And I don't want to, waste everyone's time on like every detail that I love. But if you have read the books, then you know how perfect the title of this book is. I'm just obsessed with it. I don't know. I don't know why. I'm just like, that's so satisfying. So in this one, we make a lot of progress on the personal relationships, make a lot of progress on who knows what and who's lying to who and all of those things, as well as the overall plot. Moving forward with that, we've got a great setup for book 3. I don't feel like this had middle book syndrome at all. I feel like it did what it was trying to do, and it did it so well, and especially like the progress on the personal relationships made it really satisfying and really interesting, and not just, oh, we're tying that up and setting up this. No, we're making progress, and we love them, and we love each other, and we just need to be okay. I'm just really happy with all the things that were resolved in this book. There were some things I was really worried we were gonna wait till book 3 to tie up, and we did get those in this book, and I was really happy about that. And I just love every single one of these characters. I want them all to live and thrive and flourish and be happy and have their HEA. And this is not a romance book, so I'm really not guaranteed that. And I just need them all to have a wonderful life. Then I read Sweep of the Blade, which is Innkeeper Chronicles #4 by Ilona Andrews. I, of course, read this for the Ilona Andrews read-along, specifically Innkeeper Chronicles read-along with Izzy, Megan, and Shay.
I mean, as much as I love Shay, she's not a part of this. It's Steph, who is the person that I was picturing. I just said the wrong short to S name, so if you're wondering how easily I confuse the words, they both start with S, and they're 4 letters. So, and they have an E. Basically the same thing.
Give this 4 stars. This follows, the whole series is about Dina, who is an innkeeper, and then her werewolf love interest, right? But this book follows her sister, who married a space vampire, had a little vampire baby. The space vampire husband was a moron, got them disowned from the family. She had to survive all of this stuff, and now she is having a romance with the vampire that we met back in book 1 through Dina. In this book, they go to his vampire houses. You can kind of think house like nobility or kingdom or things like that. So they go there. So we're in a whole new setting and we're with a whole new cast of characters, basically. I loved this. I didn't love it quite as much. There were a couple things that I thought weren't quite perfect, but that didn't bother me. This has a lot of vampire politics. It's a lot of Maud proving her worth, not only as a human, but as the love interest of the beloved son of the vampires, but also just her worth to the house and how much she really brings to the table. Helen, the little vampire child, is beyond adorable. Very sweet. Then I read Railed by the Easter Bunny, which is Valley of the Old Gods #1 by Davies, maybe? I gave this 4 stars. This is a novella. I put this on my TBR last year because Izzy loved it. When you think Easter Bunny, you need to think the pagan god that the holiday is based on originally, that type of thing. It was steamy. You have a content warning for domestic abuse. It was a good time. Then I read The Lord of Stariel, which is Stariel #1 by A.J. Lancaster. I gave this 5 stars. I got this recommendation from Elsie Winters, who is the author of Green Eyed Monster that I adore. I could not tell you. Why this series worked for me, because it shouldn't have. And even like having read it, I'm just like, there's so many things in this that like I would like it if it was tweaked this way. But I did like it as it was, and I couldn't tell you why. So this is like a fantasy / historical book. Think Downtown Abbey, quiet country estate, all of the interpersonal conflicts, and also magic and fae and dragons and things like that, okay? They have a magic land basically, and it picks its lord, and her father dies and she goes back and of course gets picked, and no one thought she would be, and that's kind of, you know, an issue. There is no steam in this book. You have 4 different books following the same couple. You have a content warning for a homophobic society. So her brother is gay, he's in the closet. He's had one boyfriend who has created problems for him. And there's no active homophobia on the page, but it's very obvious that not everyone would be accepting of this. And I read the next book and I gave it 5 stars, The Prince of Secrets. And this one, you get a lot of progress, more fae politics, no steam, although this is, in my opinion, the steamiest book because you get like heavy makeout sessions. And because the first book was clean, she actually had a ton of complaints from her readers about steam. So she kind of pulled back in the later books. And so that was a whole thing she had to deal with. This book is interesting because it's almost all his point of view, which I didn't tell you, but, or I'm not telling you who the love interest is. Okay. Then the third book, The Core Mortals, I gave 3 stars. This one was an exercise in frustration. Ugh. Murder complex, politics, people just throwing hurdles in their way and them not having the power to push against it. The prejudice against them, just, ugh. So frustrating. I understand why she did it. It changed where we were to where we were going, and it was a good transition for that, but it was frustrating to read, especially because at this point we're 3 books in and I'm just like, can you get your act together? And I would give you a content warning in this book specifically for internalized homophobia. The brother just wishes he wasn't gay, thinks that something's wrong with him, all of that, okay? And then lastly for the series, I read The King of Fairy, which I again gave 5 stars. And this is multiple parts. So we have some transitions. We do actually go into fairy, and I guessed the twist. I don't know if it was at the beginning of this book or even books farther back, but I knew what was happening. I was right about everything. I just want you all to know that. This was really good. We do have a pregnancy and a lot of anxiety kind of about the pregnancy in this book because they are not married. So it has, you know, a lot of things happening, right? They do talk about abortion and decide that they don't want that. So, know that if you don't want pregnancy or anxiety about pregnancy or any of the things, it's in there, so just be aware of that, okay? I did really like the ending. There is another book that is about the brother, and I do really want to read it.
Hi again. I did also completely forget, because I didn't put on my notes, I finished Calling on Dragons, which is Enchanted Forest Chronicles number 3 by Patricia C. Reeds. This is an elementary / middle grade, and I've been reading this to my kids for months. And this is like a weird transition book. So the first book in the series is about a princess who goes to live with the dragons. And then the last book in the series is about her son when he's a teenager. And this is a weird transition book to get us there. My kids still enjoyed it. I'd say 3 stars. It's not the strongest in the series, but this is a series that I read as a kid, read again as an adult. I'm now reading again to my children, and they're loving it.
Then I reread, okay, listen. Then it became public knowledge that Taylor Swift and Joe Alwyn broke up. And I was like, oh. I have a parasocial relationship with Taylor Swift, and I'm actually kind of sad about this. So I reread a comfort read, The Hookup by Kristen Ashley, which is Moonlight and Mother Oil #1, because I needed an emotional support book. And I'd been wanting to reread this for the 3rd time. I cried like 10 times reading this book. And I don't know if it was just like my emotional state, or if it's because I love these characters so much at this point. Like, they're just some of my all-time favorites, or what, because if you read it, it's not really that emotional of a book. Now, I can tell you, I will never reread the second book. It is fantastic. It is wonderful. It is gut-wrenching. I sobbed in that book. I will never be rereading it. Not only is the whole beginning of it very stressful, but then also there is a death of a character, and it's just terrible. So I'll probably never reread that one, but this is a small town one-night stand. They're in their 30s. He had a longtime girlfriend. She left him. Everyone knows that they were meant to be together, and he's been dead since she left. And then Izzy comes into town, and he comes back to life. Personally, I really like the other woman drama in this. I think it's handled really well by all parties. I like it. It's not like, oh, that whore used to have my man, or like, it's just, it's good. It's real emotions, it's real attachment, but it is not pointless drama of trying to steal someone from someone else. You want like my favorite small town romance, this is it. Then I read Love Notes, which is Equilibrium #1 by Christina C. Jones. I gave this 4 stars. This is really sweet. We have a barber and a photographer, and there's a content warning for sexual harassment for the stepfather and foster care. I really did not love the way that was handled and the overall conflict. I was just kind of confused as to why we made the choices that we made with that. Yeah, just the whole conflict kind of brought my enjoyment down, but it's Christina C. Jones. You're gonna love the couple. Then I read Blood Mercy, which is Blood Grace #1 by Vela Roth. This is a fantasy romance, and okay, so we have this vampire goody two-shoes race, and they, you know, are just all things goodness. A little too good, in my opinion. They needed to be muddied up a little bit. But, you know, they're just the best. And then the humans, they're just the worst. And, of course, and there's this abusive king, and he's, you know, you just want to kill him, but you can't. And so we're following his bastard daughter, who he kind of acknowledges, but, like, not good social standing, not safe, all the things. The first 75% of this book is so slow. Now, that didn't really bother me, partially because Joshana, who read it and recommended it to me and told me that the main character, Kasia, is incredibly smart and manipulative and good at court intrigue and good at pulling strings and getting people where she wants them, and I was like, yes please. So she told me that the first 75% of this book was slow, and so I really did go in with correct expectations, and I think that really helped me to enjoy the book. But it is very slow, and I think that that's done completely on purpose, not only to illustrate the life that she was living before she met Leo, but also how long it took for her to trust him and fall in love with him and to risk her life basically for this relationship. That was not an overnight thing, and I liked how that was illustrated, honestly. 75% and we get a lot of action, and we were ready for it by then. Things are happening, and the vampires are there to renew a treaty with their people, and the Human King is like stalling it. He doesn't want it to happen, but he wants it to look like he's cooperating, right? So lots of things happen, and then they go back home. So at the end of this book, they're separated because of political things, but emotionally they're trying to get back together. I really like these characters. The writing does work. The sex scenes are bad. The sex scenes are bad. They're so flowery and weird. They have made up words for their parts. It's just, spoiler alert, they're both virgins. And the deflowering scene was 3 chapters long for no reason. For no reason. It was not worth it. It was not good. The sex scenes are not good in this series. I stand by that. All right. Then I read book 2, which is Blood Solace. I gave this one 5 stars. And this one, they are separated for the first half of the book, and yet I loved the way that that went. It was very interesting. We were watching both of them try to maneuver their way back to each other. And so, you know, surprisingly, I actually loved the whole part of the book where they were separated. This has foot stuff in the sex scene, and I do not like foot. I don't like feet. I don't like feet, okay? So I was like skimming, like, oh, like I was not having a good time. The politics are great. The love interest Leo is very annoying because he's so marthery and just like, oh, I'll die for the greater good. Like, shut up. And also, they're fated mates, right? And the Hesperans, which are the vampires, they, you know, have this wonderful thing that's fated mates, and they don't tell outsiders because of all sorts of reasons, right? But he's the only one in the history of their like 1600 years as a race that hasn't told his fated mate that they're his fated mate. And it's all because he wants her to want to be with him. And I'm just like, this is stupid. I hate this so much. But like I said, I still gave it 5 stars, so ignore all my complaining. Then we get to Blood Sanctuary, part 1. Also, the first book is almost 800 pages, and the second book is like 500 or 600. Like, that's how long these books are, okay? Okay? I'm reading them back to back. So all of my complaining should genuinely be taken with a grain of salt, because clearly I spent like 2 weeks reading these books. So how bad can they be? I'm gonna tell you. Okay, this is book 3. I gave it 4 stars. So we have fated mates but can't tell each other for no reason for this whole entire book. They don't find out in this. He doesn't tell her in this book. We have a lot of politics. His family is so kind to her, and she's like really enjoying being with them, but she's there as a representative of her country along with the rest of the ambassadors and stuff, so like she has to be careful what she's doing, and they're using all sorts of magic to hide everything, so like she can pretty much do whatever she wants, but there's a lot with that, okay? This one's 500 pages. Yeah, part 1. And the Hesperans are still just a little too good. It's just like, and the way they talk to each other is so flowery and so complimentary and like courtier, and it's a lot. But again, don't listen to my complaints, because clearly I was enjoying the series.
I will tell you that her dad never finds out about them, so I spent like the entire several books stressing about that, and you don't have to stress about that.
Then I read Blood Sanctuary part 2, which is book 4, which I gave 4 stars. Another like 500 pages. So 40% into this book, book number 4, we finally inform her that we're fated mates. Okay, so that was cool. We have a torture scene in this book, not of the two main characters, but of a side character, and it might feel like it's going to be sexual assault. It's not. It's just torture, but just, you know, going into it, that's what it is. Just torture. We had a lot of progress on the plot. We set up a lot of new things for the plot, and some of those kind of came out of nowhere, but whatever. And there was a reveal that I predicted from the very beginning of the series. I'm talking couple chapters in, like their first interaction. I knew it. Okay, so there are 2 more books of the series out. It's part 1 and part 2 of the next book, and then the 3rd one's coming out, or the 7th one is coming out in June. So technically I have 2 more books that I can read and then 1 more to read. So I do plan on continuing the series. The fact that I have nothing but complaints, just ignore it. Just ignore me. I liked it. If you like political and romance and really smart characters that you can root for, this is great for that. It is like day by day, slow. And like I said, sometimes, like, I just kind of want to smack him a little bit and be like, get your act together. Chill out. Calm your martyr complex and just live and be happy. And by live and be happy, I mean, tell your girl that she's your fated mate. Okay, so then I read The King's Horrible Bride by Katie Wilde. I gave this 4 stars. This is a contemporary romance that is about a king, and it's got insta-lust and bad communication. I love her writing, and honestly, this book from anyone else would have been rated lower. But I loved it because of her writing. I do really like it. So he's the king. Her father was a billionaire that basically paid for his kingdom. They've been betrothed for like 12 years. He's never acknowledged her. And now he's like, I can't wait to marry you. So there you go. Then I read For Never by Aurora Rose Reynolds, and I gave this 2 stars. This is one of those things where, like, you wanted that flavor, and even though it was a not good, a subpar version of that flavor, like, it's still what you had at the time, so you just consumed it. This is that. So this is okay. All right. Okay. I have a billionaire, and she gets hired as the secretary because her best friend is actually his secretary, and she's on maternity leave. And she's a kindergarten teacher or 1st grade teacher or whatever, but she needs extra money, and content warning, her mom is in remission from cancer. So she works for him for a week, and then he calls her at 5:30 in the morning on a Saturday, first Saturday after she worked there, and is like, hey, you need a pack for a week. So she does. He wants her to be his fake fiance. And guess where he's taking her? His family reunion. When I tell you that I personally would be pissed at this man that whole week, there is 0% chance that I am falling for you during this week, because not only does he drop her in the middle of a family reunion, which, like, kill me now, I would rather die. $40,000 or $50,000 or whatever it is that he's willing to pay her. I mean, that is a lot. I mean, I would do it for the money, but if you think I'm falling in love with you, you're wrong. I'm getting that paycheck, and that is it. Oh, it just sounds terrible. It sounds so, like, no. I would for sure be doing it for the money, but not for the man. Not only she has to do all this stuff with the family reunion the entire time, but he's not. He's off doing his work, and she's just at the family reunion by herself. I'm telling you right now, you could be the hottest, sweetest man in the entire world, and there is 0% chance that I'm falling in love with you during this scenario, because again, I am hating every minute of all of this, and she keeps getting hurt, and it's all, you know, very formulaic and dramatic and stuff, but I don't love this man. I am annoyed with this man. Then, at the end of the week, she's like, oh, I don't understand. I understand that you're in love with him, but let me tell you, if my boyfriend offers me $50,000, I am taking it. My fiance offers me $50,000, I am taking it. If my husband offers me $50,000 for something I already did, I am taking it. The money's not a betrayal of your love. That was the plan, Stan, was $50,000. Again, he's a billionaire. Like, you have to understand, it's like he's loaning you a quarter for a regular person. I hate it so much, you idiot. Okay, listen, he has more money than any human should have. You get more money than that for a game show. Take the money. You can still love him if you so choose. I don't understand why. But take the money. Ugh. It was not good. It was not good. And I would just have been having the worst time if I was this main character. And then lastly, I read Found Forever, which is Sisters and Serendipity, #2 by Lady Marie. I gave this 3 stars, so this follows one of the sisters of the main character of the first book, and she and her husband have been married for a few years, and she was a single mom before they got married, and her baby daddy has come back to town and is causing all sorts of issues. And that's really what this book is about. So we're not really having a romance. We already have our couple. They're good. They're solid. They are delightful, actually. Her husband, a real man. I support them. Baby daddy, a punk. But it's not really a romance. We're really just, checking in on them in their relationship during this thing that they're going through, which is all caused by him being a jerk and wanting her back and, all of that. I really felt for her because he leaves her like in the hospital after giving birth to their child, and having a baby is just, it's so much, y'all. And just physically, you're talking 2 years of just not being yourself, and to have that coincide with just the emotional distress is a lot. It's a lot, and I really felt for her with that. So again, I really liked the couple. I liked everything that they did, but this isn't really a romance, and it's not really the type of story that super interests me, so that did reflect in my enjoyment of it. But I think she did what she was trying to do. She did a good version of it. I really liked the couple, and again, I'm looking forward to the next book, which follows the next sister, who is also married and about to get divorced. So we're going to see their marriage hopefully get rescued, and I'm looking forward to that. So that's all the books that I read in April. Have you read or want to read any of these? Let me know. Again, I read 2 different series, like 4 books in 2 different series, back to back to back, which is unusual for my reading these days. So despite anything I said about them, take that as a recommendation, honestly, because clearly they held my attention for that long. So that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.